My name is Linda Ray Whitmore. I'm 72 years old, and I never thought a pot of cold coffee and a blue church dress would mark the beginning of my undoing. It was a Sunday like any other, quiet, slow, and mostly spent talking to myself. But when my grandson Mason stopped by and casually mentioned the wedding plans, well, that's when the quiet turned into something else entirely. Have you ever poured your whole life into someone only to feel like you're being erased from the picture? Drop a comment if you've ever felt like a guest in your own family. Because what happened next made one thing painfully clear. You can give someone your heart, your home, even your savings, and still not be seen as real family. Let me take you back a few days, to the booth in my kitchen, and the moment I realized something had shifted for good. I sat at the old kitchen booth, same one Joe built for me in '82, sipping coffee that had long gone cold. Outside, the wind whispered through the pine trees, carrying the faint sound of a neighbor's wind chime. Sundays always had a way of stretching themselves out here in Dunlapslow, like molasses over cornbread. That morning, I dressed up for no good reason. Just an old habit. Powder blue dress, pressed last night, matching cardigan. Hair set in curlers the night before, not that anyone noticed these days. I'd just taken the cornbread out of the oven when I heard his truck pull up. Mason. My heartbeat picked up like it always did. That boy's the only one who still makes this house feel alive. Grandma, he called as he stepped through the screen door, arms full of textbooks and energy drinks. You cooking again? I laughed. No, I'm just baking for the raccoons. All set. He dropped his bag with a thud and hugged me tight, taller than me now, but still smelled like the same little boy who used to climb into my bed during thunderstorms. Got time for lunch? I asked, setting down 2 plates. Always for you, he grinned. We sat across from each other, steam rising from the cornbread, butter melting just right. Mason caught me up on school, work, his car needing brakes, things that made me feel useful just listening. Then, like someone dropping ice into warm water, his voice shifted. So, Dad and Brittany set the wedding date. I paused, fork midair. Oh, that's soon, ain't it? End of May. Big venue near Nashville. Brittany's already got a planner. It's gonna be this whole thing. Sounds fancy. I kept my voice even. He nodded, eyes darting toward the window. Yeah. She wants it to be real polished. She said something kinda weird. I waited. She told Dad she doesn't want the guest list to feel too family heavy. Whatever that means. I laughed too sharply. I reckon that's a new problem in the world, having too much family. Mason gave a sheepish smile, like he knew it wasn't funny. I pushed a glass of sweet tea toward him. And what's your daddy say to all that? He shrugged. You know Dad. He just wants things to go smooth, says Brittany's real set on the image she's building. Image. That word hung in the air like cigarette smoke. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, even though they weren't dirty. Well, as long as they're happy. That's all that matters, right? He didn't answer right away. Just reached for another piece of cornbread. Grandma. He paused. I know she ain't exactly warm, but I hope you'll still come. I really want you there. I smiled, forcing it past the lump rising in my throat. Course I'll be there, wouldn't miss it for the world. I'm hosting, but deep down, something pinched, like a drawer that wouldn't close right. Later that night, after Mason had gone, I wandered into the bedroom and opened the closet. My eyes landed on the blue dress I'd worn to my niece's wedding last spring, knee-length, with little lace cuffs I'd sewn myself. Simple, but it made me feel like me. I pulled it out, held it up to my chest, looked in the mirror. Then I saw it. A small tear at the hem. Barely there. But I stared at it for a long time. My fingers tracing the threads like they might tell me something. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, recipe book in my lap, Joe's old leather-bound one, with his scribbles in the margins. He used to say, every recipe's a love letter. I flipped to his favorite, skillet peach cobbler. The ink was faded, but his handwriting was still firm, solid. Like he always was. For a moment, I imagined him beside me. His arm across my back. His voice saying, Linda, don't let them small you down. But he wasn't there. Just the wind against the siding and a growing silence I couldn't quite name. I closed the book and whispered to the room. What if I already did? Outside, the porch light flickered. Inside, the coffee pot was still on. And in the morning, I knew I'd press that blue dress again just in case it mattered. The phone rang just past 7. I was halfway through folding the laundry, still dressed in my house slippers and a sweatshirt from a church retreat we took back in 2005. The name on the screen read, Cole, and my heart picked up like it always did. It had been weeks since he called. Months, really, if you didn't count short texts about Mason's schedule or last-minute holiday plans. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and answered. Hey, baby. Hey, Mom, he said, his voice upbeat but tight, like he was trying too hard to sound cheerful. You got a second? For you? Always. I sank into the booth seat and waited. So, he started, Brittany and Orr getting married end of May. Thought I'd tell you myself before Mason spilled the beans. I smiled, even though I already knew. He did mention it. Sounds like y'all are putting together something real nice. Oh yeah, it's gonna be beautiful. She's been dreaming of this since she was little. Has a whole Pinterest board. Wedding planner, designer gown, that kind of thing. I could picture it already. Brittany in pearls, champagne towers, custom napkins with their initials on them. Glad to hear it, I said, trying to sound warm. You know I'm happy for you, right? Yeah, I know, Mom. Then silence. The kind where you feel something's coming, and your body knows it before your brain catches up. So, listen, he continued. I wanted to ask if you might be able to help. Financially. There it was. I shifted in my seat. Help how? Hay hesitated. Well, we've been budgeting, but this venue it's really important to Brittany. It's the Montgomery Ridge Country Club. Overlooks the lake, big ballroom, real classic. She fell in love with it. Sounds fancy. It is, he said, almost sheepishly. They want half down to reserve it. Plus catering, rentals, floral deposit, all up front. 1. How much are we talking, Cole? He cleared his throat. Around 28,000, give or take. I blinked. For a second I thought maybe I misheard. $28,000? I repeated, as gently as I could. I know, he said quickly. It's a lot. But we figured, maybe if you could cover the venue and catering, we'd handle the rest. You'd be giving us the biggest gift of all. My mouth went dry. That was more than I'd saved in 10 years. I'd been putting away what I could, birthday money, Christmas bonuses, even skipped dentist appointments to make sure I wouldn't burden Mason down the line. Cole, that's nearly all I've got. I know. But Brittany really wants to do it right this time. Her first wedding was a courthouse thing. She says this is her one shot to have the day she always dreamed of. I stared at the salt shaker on the table. My hand drifted toward Joe's recipe book, like it might steady me. I'll pay you back, he added, too quickly. We both will. Once our tax return hits and I get that promotion, we'll make it right. He wouldn't. I knew it. And still, I wanted to believe him. Because what if this wedding brought us closer again? What if this was the way back in? Well, I said slowly, I reckon I can help with some of it. Not sure I can cover it all at once. Oh, Mom, thank you. His voice softened. You're the best. Brittany'll be so grateful. She keeps saying how lucky I am to have a mom like you. That part stung more than I expected. Not. We're grateful. Not. You'll be part of this with us. Just, Brittany'll be happy. All right, I said quietly. You let me know when and where to send the check. You're a lifesaver, Mom. Seriously. I'll call you later with the details. He hung up before I could ask what else they needed. I sat there for a while, staring out the window. The porch light flickered, catching the side mirror of Mason's old truck still parked in the driveway. He'd left an hour ago, but I hadn't moved much since. My eyes drifted to the recipe book again. I opened it, found the peach cobbler page. Joe's handwriting looped beside the sugar measurements. For Sunday smiles. I ran my fingers over the words. Then I got up, went to the bedroom, and pulled the envelope from my top drawer. The one marked rainy day. Guess this counted. I transferred the first 10,000 the next morning, just like Cole said. I didn't tell Mason. I didn't tell Ellie. I just told myself, maybe this is what it takes. Maybe this is how I get my seat back at the table. Brittany picked the place. Some upscale brunch spot in Franklin, where the iced tea came in stemmed glasses and the menu had no prices. She texted me the name 2 days pre-Orno greeting, just 11:45 at Hazel plus time. Don't be late. I arrived 15 minutes early. It's just how I was raised. Early means prepared, late means disrespect. The hostess looked me up and down before asking, "Reservation under?" "Brittany Keller," I said, smoothing the front of my sweater. She raised a brow, but nodded. "She hasn't arrived yet. Would you like to wait at the table?" I followed her through a room full of polished wood, clinking silverware, and conversations just loud enough to make you feel alone. When I sat down, I made sure my purse was tucked under my chair. I placed my napkin across my lap. I smiled at the server and ordered water. And I waited. 27 minutes, to be exact. When Brittany finally walked in, she didn't rush. No wave, no apology. She slid into the seat across from me, sunglasses still on. "Traffic's a nightmare," she said, grabbing the menu like it owed her money. "Hope you didn't wait too long." I smiled politely. "Just got here." She didn't thank me. Didn't ask how I'd been. Just launched into, "So I wanted to go over a few things before our final meeting with the planner next week." I nodded. "Of course." She flipped open a leather-bound folder. Inside were swatches, font samples, diagrams of seating charts like some kind of battle plan. "We're going for rustic, luxe," she said, pointing at a photo of a wedding arch made of driftwood and roses. "And we want the colors to be deep green and champagne, not gold, champagne." "Pretty," I said. "Very elegant." She didn't look up. I waited for her to ask what I thought about anything. She didn't. When the server came, she ordered for herself quinoa salad, dressing on the side. Then she glanced at me. "You want something?" "Just a bowl of tomato soup, thank you," I said. Once he left, she continued without pause. "Now, for the ceremony, we're doing minimal family involvement. We want the energy to stay focused on us." I blinked. "What do you mean by minimal?" She took off her sunglasses and finally met my eyes. No readings, no candle lighting, no speeches. Just presence. I know that's disappointing, but it's about modern flow, not tradition. That word. Tradition. It clanged around my chest like a dropped skillet. "Of course," I said slowly. "It's your day." Brittany smiled, like I'd passed a test. "Glad you get it. Some mothers really try to insert themselves. You're not like that." I wasn't. I'd already inserted my savings instead. She reached for her phone mid-sentence and started scrolling. "Oh, and about the dress you're planning to wear. Cole mentioned it's blue." "Powder blue," I said. "Knee length. I wore it to my niece's wedding last spring." She frowned without looking up. "Yeah, that might read. Cold on camera." I was thinking more along the lines of something neutral. Beige, soft blush, something that won't draw focus. I stared at her. Just for a second. Then I smiled. "I'll see what I can do." "Perfect." We finished lunch, or rather, she finished speaking, and I tried not to look like a waitress hovering at the edge of someone else's celebration. When the check came, she let it sit. I waited. She kept talking about invitation thickness. So, I paid it. On the way back to my truck, I called Ellie. She didn't pick up, but I left a message. "Don't let me chicken out of telling the truth next time." That night, I took the blue dress out of the closet and laid it flat on the bed. I ran my fingers down the seams, then held it up against the mirror. Too cold for camera. Was I that, too? I thought about Mason's face when he found out I'd paid. The way he'd said, "You shouldn't have to buy your way into their lives." He was right. But I wasn't ready to let go of the hope not yet. I folded the dress gently and placed it back in the closet. For now. The dress shop was air-conditioned to the point of punishment. The kind of cold that makes you cross your arms, even if you don't want to look nervous. I'd driven down to Murfreesboro on a Thursday, hoping to beat the weekend crowd. Brittany had sent me a link the night before. A soft lavender gown, sleeveless, chiffon, and apparently mother of the groom appropriate. That's what the email said. No greeting, no signature. Just a link and 3 words. This one works. I walked through racks of sequins, satin, and dresses that looked like they belonged to women I'd never be mistaken for. Young, glossy, paper-thin. A salesgirl approached me, barely 20, maybe. Perfect makeup, soft smile. Shopping for a wedding? I nodded. My son's. She lit up. Mother of the bride or groom? He hesitated. Groom. Well, congrats. Do you have a style in mind? I held out my phone and showed her the lavender dress. She leaned in. Oh, I remember this one. Very tasteful. Let me pull your size. She returned with a hanger draped in gauzy purple. I followed her to the fitting room, heart already sinking. Inside, I stared at my reflection under fluorescent lights. The dress was fine, it just didn't feel like mine. I slipped it on anyway. The zipper caught halfway up my back, and I had to twist like I was doing yoga just to get it to close. When I looked in the mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw someone being managed. I tugged at the neckline, trying to make it sit right. The sleeves were too short. The fabric too slick. It clung in all the wrong places. I stepped out of the fitting room anyway. The girl tilted her head. That's lovely on you. It's a little snug. We can size up, but that one's gonna look frumpy in photos. Trust Methis is the cut. Photos? Everything was always about the photos. I nodded. As she went to grab a matching clutch, I caught my reflection again, eyes a little too tired, smile pulled too tight. I thought about the blue dress back home. The one I'd worn to Millie's wedding. Joe had called it my Sunday sunshine dress. Said it brought out the brightness in my eyes. I didn't feel bright now. I felt like a placeholder. Back in the fitting room, I sat on the bench and stared at my purse. My phone buzzed, a text from Ellie. You okay? Want me to swing by later? I stared at it for a full minute. Then typed. Maybe. Got the dress. It's lavender, not me. She replied right away. You sure it's what you want? I didn't answer. Instead, I zipped up the dress and bought it. Because sometimes, it's easier to wear what they pick than fight for what feels like you. At home, I hung it on the back of the bedroom door. The lavender looked even paler in the afternoon light, almost gray. Mason came by after work, smelling faintly of grease and hay. His boots tracked a little dirt, but I didn't mind. Dirt meant work meant roots. He saw the dress hanging and frowned. That what you're wearing to the wedding? I nodded. Looks fancy. It's what Brittany wanted. He tilted his head. But, is it what you wanted? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I don't know anymore, I said. Maybe it doesn't matter. Abu Aima. He picked up a safety pin off the dresser and turned it in his fingers. You wore that blue dress to my science fair back in 8th grade, remember? I smiled. That was a day. You looked like you belonged to the sky. Everyone said so. That hit me harder than I expected. I reached for the dress and laid it flat on the bed. The fabric was smooth, cool, obedient. I ran my hand over it. Tried to imagine Joe seeing me in it. Tried and failed. Still, I placed it gently in the garment bag and hung it in the closet. Maybe it wasn't me. But maybe, if I wore it, they'd let me stay. The invitation to the planning session came through Cole. Not a call. Not even a voice memo. Just a forwarded email from Brittany that said, venue walkthrough, Tuesday at 1. Would be helpful if Linda came. Would be helpful. Not. We'd love for you to be there. Not. We're excited to have you. Just. Helpful. Still, I marked it on the calendar. Drove the 45 minutes to Franklin. wore a soft cream blouse, and the pearl studs Joe gave me on our 20th anniversary. I told myself, maybe this is where things shift. Maybe standing in the middle of it all would remind them I'm still here. Still part of this. The venue sat on a slope overlooking a man-made lake. It looked like something out of a magazine. White shutters, rows of white chairs already being lined up outside. Inside, Brittany greeted me with a brisk nod and a clipboard. "Glad you made it," she said, then turned to the planner. "Let's start with the reception layout." I followed them through a bright ballroom filled with folding tables and boxes of centerpieces stacked on carts. A seating chart rested on a long table. It was printed in elegant script across a foam board. Cole and Brittany's names were in gold at the top. I looked down the list of tables, scanning, until I found it. Table 12. Linda Whitmore. That was me. Not near the sweetheart table. Not with family. Table 12 off to the side. Next to the bar. Seated with names I didn't recognize. I checked again. Brittany's parents were listed at table 2. Her stepdad even got a Mr. before his name. Cole's name was nowhere near mine. I swallowed. Then tapped the corner of the chart gently. "Is there a reason I'm at table 12? Brittany barely looked up. "It's just spacing. We wanted to keep things balanced. Plus, we figured you'd be more comfortable there." Comfortable? I stood there, heart in my throat, nodding like I understood. Like it made sense that a woman who had worked double shifts to pay for her son's textbooks was now a footnote at his wedding. Cole walked in just then, carrying a box of printed programs. "Hey Mom," he said. "Glad you came." I wanted to ask him if he saw it. If he knew. But he just smiled at Brittany, then handed the planner the box and moved on. I stood still. Just still enough to feel the air move around me. Like I wasn't even there. Later, while Brittany debated napkin folds with the planner, I slipped outside to the covered patio. The lake shimmered in the distance. Wind stirred the sheer curtains hung from the rafters. Behind me, voices buzzed. Inside jokes. Champagne preferences. People who'd already decided where I fit. A woman in a black polo shirt and a headset stepped outside to smoke. She looked about my age, give or take a decade. "Venue staff," I guessed. She gave me a nod. "You with the groom's side?" "Supposedly," I said with a smile that didn't quite reach. She chuckled. "Don't worry, you're not the first mother edged out of the picture. I've seen it more times than I can count." I blinked. "Really?" "Weddings," she said, taking a drag. "They bring out the worst in people who want to be seen and the best in people willing to disappear." She flicked her ash into a potted fern and went back inside. I stayed put. Watched the lake. Heard her words echo in my chest. People willing to disappear. I thought of all the little ways I'd been dimming myself lately. The dress, the silence, the check I hadn't even told Mason about. How much smaller was I willing to make myself? When the meeting wrapped, Brittany offered a vague wave. "Thanks for coming, Linda." That was it. No hug. No warmth. Just thanks, and goodbye. Driving home, I took the long way. Through winding backroads where cell service dropped out and familiar fields rolled past like they had my whole life. At a red light, I glanced at the program Cole had left in the passenger seat. On the back was a message. "Thank you to our amazing families for helping make this day unforgettable. Nah names. Nah photo. Nah mention." I whispered to myself. I paid for the day, but I'm not even part of the memory. I voledu. Back home, I walked into the kitchen and opened the drawer where I kept the old Polaroid camera. The one I used to bring to school plays, baseball games, birthday parties. Still had a photo inside. Faded. Cracked at the corners. Me and Cole at his high school graduation. Arms around each other. Smiling so big I could feel the warmth just looking at it. I held it up to the window. And for a second, I wondered if I disappeared now, would anyone notice? Then I tucked it back in the drawer. And said out loud, "I will not disappear. Not yet." The call came 2 nights before the wedding. I was slicing cucumbers for Mason's lunch, halfway through humming an old Loretta Lynn song, when my phone lit up with Cole's name. He didn't call often. Texts, mostly. Even that was getting sparse. "Hey, Mom," he said, sounding rushed. "Real quick about Friday. Rehearsal dinner?" I asked, trying to keep the hope out of my voice. "Yeah. Brittany thinks it might be best if, you just join us for the ceremony instead." I'll load. My hand stilled over the cutting board. I blinked. I wasn't invited to the dinner? It's gonna be tight, and her parents already have a full table, and some of her friends are flying in early. "You don't have to explain, Cole," I said softly. Message received. He hesitated. "It's not personal, just logistics." That word again. Just logistics. Just placement. Just address. Just your savings. I looked at the cucumbers and felt like I was watching someone else's life from the outside. "All right," I said. "Hope y'all have a nice evening." "Thanks, Mom." I knew you'd understand. I didn't. Not really. After we hung up, I stood there in the quiet, the hum of the fridge filling the space where my thoughts should have been. I thought about calling Ellie, about telling her what just happened. But something stopped me. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was stubbornness. Instead, I walked to the bedroom and stared at the garment bag hanging from the closet door. The lavender dress. Pressed. Waiting. I sat on the edge of the bed and folded my hands in my lap. The silence felt heavier than it should have. In the corner of the room, the lamp buzzed faintly. I looked down at my fingers. They were trembling. A knock came at the door an hour later. It was Ellie, holding a to-go bag from the taco truck down the road and wearing her worn-out Tennessee Tech hoodie. She stepped inside, took one look at me, and said, "Talk." I didn't mean to cry. I really didn't. But when I opened my mouth, the tears came first. She pulled me into a hug that smelled like cilantro and dry shampoo. When I finally pulled away, I said, "I'm not going to the rehearsal dinner." She raised an eyebrow. "Did they uninvite you?" "Technically, they never invited me to begin with." Ellie shook her head and muttered something under her breath that didn't need repeating. "You still going to the wedding?" she asked. I paused. "I don't know," I whispered. "I'm tired of showing up for people who act like I don't exist." Ellie sat beside me, her shoulder touching mine. "Then don't show up for them. Show up for you." I looked toward the closet. "The dress is wrong," I said. "The table is wrong. Everything about this feels wrong." "Then change something," she said. "Start with one thing that feels like you." Her words hung there like steam in the air. Later that night, after Ellie left, I pulled the lavender dress from the closet and unzipped the bag. I didn't throw it away. I didn't burn it. I just hung it beside my old blue one. And I stared at the two of them for a long, long time. One looked like me. The other looked like someone they wanted me to pretend to be. I ran my fingers over the sleeve of the blue dress, then let it fall back into place. Saturday was still coming. And I was still going. But I'd be doing it on my own terms now. I arrived at the venue 20 minutes early, dress zipped, hair pinned, heart braced. I chose the lavender one. Not because I liked it, but because I wanted no excuses. No one could say I stood out. No one could accuse me of trying to steal focus. I'd be neutral, soft, invisible, like they seemed to want me to be. The parking lot was already filling. Laughter spilled from car doors. Women in heels hurried across the gravel, holding gift bags and little boys in bow ties. I walked alone, heels clicking slow against the stone path. A girl with a clipboard and headset intercepted me at the door. "Hiname." Linda Whitmore. Mother of the groom. She paused. Checked her sheet. "Right. You'll be seated on the right side, row 6. Row 6. Not front, not reserved." I nodded and thanked her. Inside, the space had been transformed. Twinkle lights curled around beams, soft piano music floated from speakers, and a floral arch framed the altar like something out of a bridal magazine. People were already seated. Most I didn't recognize. I moved down the aisle and took my seat. Row 6. End chair. Just close enough to see, far enough not to be seen. I watched Cole walk down the aisle with the officiant. He looked sharp, nervous. I smiled, small and to myself. He didn't look at me. When Brittany appeared at the double doors, the whole room held its breath. She was beautiful. Whatever I felt about her couldn't change that. Her dress shimmered with every step. Her stepfather walked her down the aisle. Everyone rose to their feet, including me. But when she reached the altar, I caught her eyes for half a second. She looked through me, like I was wallpaper. The ceremony was short, vows read, rings exchanged. A kiss met with applause. Then the coordinator ushered everyone out for cocktail hour while the bridal party stayed back for pictures. I lingered just outside the ballroom, unsure if I was expected to go or stay. A photographer called out, "Bride's family next." I stepped forward slightly, then stopped, because Brittany's mom and stepdad were already lining up beside her. Then her cousins. Then the flower girls, her aunt. Cole's best man, his college roommate, called out to him, "Want your mom for a quick one?" Cole turned. Our eyes met. Hay looked uncertain. Then Brittany shook her head, touched his arm, and said something I couldn't hear. He didn't argue. He looked away. And I didn't move. Instead, I turned and walked toward the back of the garden, toward the benches where no one else sat. The sun was starting to dip, casting everything in that soft, golden light photographers love so much. But I'd never felt less visible. From where I sat, I could hear the camera clicking, the laughter, toasts beginning. I looked down at my hands. They were folded so tight, my knuckles ached. I remembered Mason's first birthday party, the one I threw with $20 and a prayer. I'd baked a sheet cake shaped like a dump truck. He smashed it with his fists and cried when it was gone. Cole had said, "Mom, you're magic." Now, I was a shadow at his wedding. An hour passed. Maybe more. Eventually, a young server found me and said, "They're about to do the grand entrance inside." I nodded. "Where should I sit?" I asked. She checked a tiny screen and said, "You're at table 12, near the bar." I already knew that. Still, hearing it again stung like a fresh cut. Inside, music blasted. People clapped as Cole and Brittany entered the room, all smiles and sparkle. I clapped, too. I didn't stand. Dinner came. Speeches followed. Her dad toasted the couple with a long story about Brittany's childhood and ended with, "You've always been my girl." I waited for Cole to speak. When he did, he thanked Brittany's family for welcoming him like one of their own. I smiled again. This time, it shook. No mention of me. Not even a passing thank you. Just the sound of my own fork scraping a plate I hadn't touched. Someone snapped a photo nearby. A little girl spun in a tulle dress. A mother pulled her close and whispered something that made her giggle. I looked down at the lavender folds in my lap. This dress didn't look like me. This wedding didn't feel like mine. And for the first time, I asked myself, why am I still trying to belong to people who keep reminding me I don't? I stepped outside during the cake cutting. The clatter of forks and the sound of a pop song from someone's playlist filled the reception hall. Laughter rose behind me like steam off a stovetop. I couldn't breathe in there anymore. I found a quiet spot behind the catering tent, near the side of the building where the grass hadn't been trimmed and the fairy lights didn't reach. The sky was dimming, soft gold bleeding into blue. I stood still, just listening. My own name hadn't been said once all night. Not during the vows, not in the toasts. Not even a casual, "Linda, would you like a drink?" People brushed past me like I was invisible. A silent, dressed-up ghost in lavender. I just turned to go back inside when I heard the voice. "There you are." It was Brittany. She was holding a champagne flute and walking too quickly in heels that didn't quite match the gravel path. I stopped. She reached me, breath tight. "Why are you back here?" I needed some air. She glanced around, then back at me. "This isn't the vibe we're going for tonight." I blinked. "Excuse me?" This whole wandering off thing, sitting by yourself, it's making people uncomfortable. I nearly laughed. Instead, I asked, which people? She didn't answer. Instead, she smoothed her hair and said, "Look, I know this is hard for you. Change is hard, but this night it's about us. Cole and me. The new family we're building." I asked. I nodded slowly. "I see. And it's really important that we present a certain image to our guests. To the photographer, you understand?" "No," I said, "I don't." That caught her off guard. Her eyes narrowed, just a hair. "This isn't the time for conflict, Linda." I took a breath. I wasn't trying to make anything about me. You always say that, but then you hover, sit apart, look sad, you wear it like perfume. Her words stung like slap. I swallowed. "You left me off the photo list." She gave a tight smile. "Because, well, you're not real family." Silence. Even the bug stopped buzzing. I stared at her. "You mean I'm not your family?" I said, voice low. "But I'm Cole's mother, Mason's grandmother." She shook her head. "This isn't personal." That was the moment something in me snapped. I looked down at the ring on my hand. The one Joe gave me in 1978, behind the truck stop, with coffee breath and calloused hands. I looked up. "You don't get to erase me just because I don't fit into your Instagram grid." Her mouth opened, but I didn't let her speak. "Go inside," I said. "You've got your people, you've got your pictures, you don't need me in either." She blinked, then turned on her heel and stormed off. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps again. It was Cole. He looked flushed either from the dancing or the fallout. "Mom, what happened?" "Ask your wife." He sighed. "She's upset. She said you were causing a scene." I was standing still. He didn't answer. Just looked down at his shoes. "Cole," I said. "Did you know she left me out of the photos?" He looked up. "She didn't mean anything by it. She said I'm not real family." He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came. That silence told me everything. I took a step forward. "Do you believe that?" His jaw clenched. Then, almost too quietly, he said, "I don't want to fight." End of quote. "I'm not fighting," I whispered. "I'm letting go." He looked startled. Maybe because for the first time I meant it. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folded envelope. The one with the rest of the wedding payment. I held it out. Then slowly tore it in half. His eyes widened. "You asked me to help," I said. "I did, but I won't fund my own erasure." He didn't stop me. Didn't argue. Just stood there, watching his mother turn away from him. Back at the car, I sat behind the wheel, keys resting in my lap. I stared at the venue. At the fairy lights and perfect smiles and floral arches I'd paid for. And I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Done. It was a quiet Tuesday morning when the phone rang. I was in the kitchen, peeling apples for a cobbler I wasn't sure I'd finish. The sun was warming the floorboards, and the house had that slow, soft hum it always did right before the heat kicked on. Caller ID read, "Cole." I almost didn't pick up. But old habits slow. "Hey," I answered. "Mom," he said. "I need to ask something." No pleasantries. No how are you. Just business. I braced myself. "What is it?" "I talked to the venue this morning. They said the remaining balance was never paid." I paused. "That's correct," I said. Silence. "They're threatening to cancel the catering deposit unless it clears by Friday." "They should," I said. "That's their policy." He exhaled, hard. "Mom. What's going on?" "We had a deal." "No, Cole," I said, calmly. "You had an assumption." He started to say something, but I didn't let him. "I was going to give you the check," I continued. "But then your wife told me I wasn't real family. And you stood there." "That was a misunderstanding," he muttered. "She didn't mean it like that." "She meant every word," I said. "And you said nothing." He was quiet again. Then, "Do you really want to ruin this over a little hurt pride?" My throat tightened. You already ruined it, I said, voice low. You just did it with smiles and seating charts. More silence. Then, fine, I'll figure something else out. He hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time. No apology. No remorse. Just entitlement with a side of guilt. I set it down and walked to the kitchen drawer, the one where I'd tucked the torn checkheft clean across the middle. I held it up to the light, then tossed it into the trash with the apple peels. That chapter was closed. Not even taped paper could bring it back. Later that day, Mason stopped by after his shift at the feed store. He smelled like hay and diesel and youth. He flopped onto the couch, pulled off his boots, and looked at me with that same serious stare he's had since he was 10. You okay? He asked. I will be, I said. He nodded. Then leaned forward and pulled something from his jacket pocket. A folded piece of paper. He handed it to me. What's this? I asked. Open it. Inside was a printed photo, grainy, but clear. It was me, sitting alone on a bench at the wedding, a distant blur of the party behind me. Mason had taken it on his phone, without me knowing. You looked so still, he said. Like the only real thing there. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So I did both. Thank you, I whispered. For what? For seeing me. He smiled, then wrapped his arms around me. I always saw you, Grandma. Even when they didn't. I hung the photo on the fridge that night, right next to the one from his 8th grade science fair, the one where I wore the blue dress and held a papier-mâché volcano like it was the Hope Diamond. 2 different photos. 2 different versions of me. But one woman, standing still. The next morning, I got up early. Cleaned the guest room. Wrote down a grocery list that included 2 kinds of coffees and mine. Because Mason had said he wanted to spend more time here. And I was ready to make space. Not for them. For him. And for me. It started with the flyer at the grocery store. Taped to the bulletin board between babysitting ads and someone selling a used lawnmower. Upstairs apartment for rent, small, quiet, private, $650 month. Utilities included. I don't know why I tore off the number. I wasn't looking to move. But something about it stuck with me. The simplicity. The idea of space that wasn't wrapped in history. A place that didn't smell like grief or carry the echo of old arguments. 2 days later, I called. A woman named Dolores answered. Said it was above her feed store, just outside town. I live below, she added. But I mind my business. That sealed it. I drove out that afternoon. The apartment was small, just 1 bedroom, with a window that looked out over a gravel parking lot and a ridge of trees that caught the morning sun. The floors creaked. The cabinets didn't quite close. The shower needed a new curtain rod. But it felt quiet. Like maybe something could begin here. Dolores handed me the key for a quick walkthrough. Said I could take my time. I stood in the middle of the room and looked around. The walls were off-white. The baseboards scuffed. The ceiling fan ticked slightly off balance. And still, I felt more peace there than I had in months. But when I reached for the door handle to leave, my chest tightened. What would it mean to move? To pack up the house Joe built? To leave behind the place where Cole learned to walk, where Mason scraped his knee on the porch, where I planted that magnolia tree that refuses to bloom? Would that mean I was giving up? Or finally letting go? I returned the key and told Dolores I'd think about it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing the little apartment. The way the light came through the blinds. The hum of possibility in the air. Around midnight, I got up and went to the kitchen. I opened the just-in-case drawer and pulled out an old notebook. Wrote 1 line at the top of a blank page. What would it look like to start over? Then I started listing. Fresh air. Fewer ghosts. No more sitting by the phone, waiting for an invitation that wouldn't come. Freedom to host Mason for dinner without feeling like I was playing emotional tug-of-war with his father. The next morning, I called Dolores. I'll take it, I said. If it's still available. It is, she said. You want me to hold it for you? No, I said. I'll bring the deposit today. An hour later, I signed the lease. Dolores slid the key across the counter. Brass. Warm in my palm. Something about that weight felt like a shift. Like I'd finally moved from waiting to choosing. I didn't tell Cole. Didn't owe him that. But I called Ellie. You did what? She laughed. Linda Whitmore, signing a lease? I am so proud of you. It's just a little place. It's a new place. That's the whole point. She offered to help me pack. Said she'd bring wine and bubble wrap. That night, I sat in the living room with a cardboard box and started with the smallest thing I could find, Joe's fishing cap. I held it for a long time. It still smelled faintly of motor oil and lake water. I smiled, kissed the brim, and placed it gently inside. I packed slowly. Not because I was unsure. Because this time, I wanted to feel every inch of the goodbye. I spent the morning baking. Just peach cobbler. Nothing fancy. Joe's old recipe still tucked in the back of my mind like a folded note. I didn't even need to check the page anymore. The rhythm was muscle memory. Mix, pour, layer. Wait. The apartment smelled like cinnamon and summer. And for once, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Mason was due around noon. Said he'd bring iced tea from the gas station, the one with crushed ice and lemon wedges so tart they made your lips pucker. I wiped down the counter, lit a candle I'd picked up from Dolores's shop below. Vanilla cedar. Something warm. Something new. By the time he knocked, I was already smiling. He stepped in with a lazy grin and 2 plastic cups in hand. Smells like you in here. That got me. I took the drinks and led him inside. He looked around, quiet at first. Not in a bad way, just taking it in. You did good, Grandma. He finally said. This place feels like you. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Little smaller than the house, I said. He shrugged. Still feels big. We sat at the tiny kitchen table, knees nearly bumping. I served cobbler in chipped blue bowls I'd found at a yard sale. Mason took one bite and closed his eyes like he was in a commercial. Tell Brittany this is real dessert, he mumbled with his mouth full. I laughed. Don't start drama. He smirked. They're good at making it without me. We sat in the warmth of it for a moment. Cobbler, sunlight, and the sound of a floor fan humming from the hallway. Then Mason reached into his backpack and pulled out something flat, wrapped in a brown paper bag. I brought you something, he said. It's dumb, but it made me think of you. I took it carefully. Inside was a frame. Wooden, worn, a little scuffed at the corners, but inside was the photo he'd taken. Me, sitting alone on that bench outside the wedding. But next to it, he'd placed a second photo. One from years ago. Me, holding him in my lap at the county fair. His cheeks sticky with cotton candy, his little hand tangled in my necklace. You kept this? I asked, voice catching. Found it in one of Dad's old boxes, took it when he wasn't looking. That struck me. Not just what he gave, but what he took back. I stared at the 2 images side by side. Me, alone. Me, full. Same woman. Different story. I thought maybe it could go here, he said, pointing toward the wall beside the window. So, you remember how seen you really are. My throat tightened. I stood, walked to the shelf, and set the frame right beside my favorite mug. I'll see it every day, I said. Thank you, baby. He looked down, suddenly shy. After lunch, we took a walk around the block. He talked about work. About maybe going back to school. About wanting to learn how to fix more than just carburetors. I've been thinking a lot lately, he said, hands in his pockets. About who actually shows up, about what kind of man I want to be. I didn't say anything, just let him talk. And you've always shown up, Grandma, even when it hurt. That almost undid me. Back at the apartment, he helped me carry up a folding chair from the trunk. I told him he didn't have to, but he said, "You're not doing this alone anymore." Before he left, he paused at the door. You gonna be okay here? He asked. I looked around at the faded rug, the half-packed boxes, the light slanting through the blinds. "I already am," I said. He pulled me in, hugged me hard, then whispered, "I'm real family." How one. That night, I reheated the last bit of cobbler and sat on the floor, eating it straight from the pan with a spoon. No music. No television. Just the sound of a woman putting herself back together, one Sunday at a time. It was a Tuesday. Sky clear, breeze soft. One of those days that sneaks up on you, makes you believe, for a moment, that the world never broke anything. I stood in front of my closet, fingers grazing over fabrics I no longer needed to impress anyone. And there it was. The blue dress. Powdery soft, light as breath, the one Brittany said would look cold on camera. I slipped it on without thinking. No mirror check. No second guess. It still fit. Felt like mine. I walked 2 blocks to the little diner with the rusted neon sign that blinked open like it was keeping a secret. The one Joe and I used to visit on Sunday mornings, when our biggest worry was whether the toast came out too dark. Inside, the same woman Georgia stood behind the counter, hair piled high like a wedding cake. She looked up and smiled. "Well, I'll be. Linda Ray in that blue dress. Haven't seen you wear that one in a minute." I smiled back. Felt like the right day. "Oi." She nodded toward the back booth. "Your usual?" It wasn't my usual anymore. Not really. But I said yes. I slid into the booth, soft vinyl under my fingertips, sunlight slanting just right across the laminate table. Georgia brought me black coffee and a slice of peach pie, no questions asked. I took one slow bite. And I swear, I felt every version of myself show up at once. The young wife. The tired mom. The grieving widow. The forgotten mother. The woman who'd finally stopped asking for a seat and made one for herself. My phone buzzed in my purse. A text from an unknown number. The preview read, "Wedding album link from Brittany and Cole." I stared at it for a second. Then deleted it. No anger. No ache. Just space. The kind you earn after everything breaks and you stop trying to glue it back together. Georgia passed by again and asked if I wanted a refill. Before I could answer, a woman in the next booth turned to me. Maybe mid-40s, soft gray sweater, reading glasses perched on her head. "I love that dress," she said. "You look beautiful in it." I blinked, then smiled. "Thank you. It's rare these days seeing someone who looks like they feel good in their skin." I didn't say anything right away. Just nodded. "I do," I said eventually. "Took me long enough." She smiled, turned back to her book. I finished the last bite of pie, letting the quiet settle around me like a well-worn quilt. Outside the window, 2 girls skipped past holding iced coffees, arms linked. And I thought about how many years I'd spent asking to belong. To Brittany. To Cole. To whatever shape they thought a mother should take. But, sitting there, in that booth, in my blue dress, I didn't feel erased. I felt whole. I wasn't waiting anymore. I wasn't proving anything. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't wondering if I had a place. I knew. Because the seat I had. I chose it.